Welcome back to Horses of Courses. I'm Tania.
I'm Susanna.
And we are coming to you from Elkins Creek Horse Camp in Pedro, Ohio, though locals call it Pedro.
If it sounds a little fuzzy, it's because someone forgot the nice microphones.
Yes, since we got the nice mics, I think this is only the second time we haven't recorded with them. They are, I think they're very handy for the price. But we are out here for our fall trail ride. This is the first time we've done it in fall in probably 4 or 5 years, maybe.
Yeah, I like it better now.
I do too. And so this is our October podcast. We wanted to thank Rick and Jill that own Elkins Creek for allowing us to host the ride. This is our 12th year.
Yeah, and if you come out here, you don't necessarily have to be horse people. You can come out here and camp. She was just telling us this morning there are hunters here that are staying. They're not horse people. They're just hunting. It's a nice place to just camp with your RV. It's mainly set up for RVs. You can tent camp here, but it's mainly set up for RVs and living quarters horse trailers.
Well, but if you do trail ride and that's something you enjoy, there's lots of RV hookups.
Right.
There's stalls. You can rent their cabins.
Yeah, there's one big cabin, like 3 or 4 little cabins, and the most adorable gypsy wagons. They are so cute. They're my favorite place to stay.
So we're at Saturday. This evening we'll do an auction, and it's a pretty good fundraiser for the organization. Speaking of fundraisers, we were going to talk to you a little bit since we're going into the end of the year about end of the year giving and company match giving Tuesday. It's giving.
A lot of people don't. What's Thanksgiving? So
and Thanksgiving's coming
up, so it's appropriate. But a lot of people don't realize that their companies have a matching program. I don't think a lot of companies advertise it, and a lot of them will do. If you donate $500 to a 501c3, we'll donate $500, and there's even a few that'll do up to $2,000. So that might be something you want to check into.
Well, and we actually did just get a donation of a larger amount, and it was because of matched giving, and it was a large donation. So if you are thinking about, most of the people do their giving in the last quarter of the year, and so think about checking with your company, asking if they do matching. And also Giving Tuesday is coming up, and that's a popular time to give. Some of the giving platforms will match donations or similar things. And then we also just keep Heart of Phoenix in mind as you head into December, because we certainly depend on those end of the year donations make up, I would say, 50% of all the giving we receive.
We do seem to get the most like in December, really.
Right. And so we appreciate you always thinking of us, and you may hear this and think, I can't afford to give. Sign up to consider giving $5 a month year round. That's always, we depend on those sustaining monthly donors.
Yes.
We also have something exciting. Next month, Susanna, Nelson, Adam Black, and I are headed to California. We're going to be doing a feral clinic out there in Pismo Beach.
Okay, just so you can feel sorry for us, we're driving. And just so you get the full picture, Tania can turn a 10-hour drive into 17.5.
So this is from my house. It's 38 hours.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be scary.
Yeah. So we are wrapping up the ASPCA grant that I pitched last year that we received funding for, which was to go to multiple places across the country and try to set people, nonprofits, up for success on handling halter training feral horses. There's a lot of things that happen to horses.
Our last clinic was great.
Yeah, we did one in New York, and it really turned out very, very well. It was very, very useful. I think very applicable to the program that we worked with there. So,
you know what I was really excited about is they sent us follow-ups where they were building on what Nelson started and continuing to progress, and they were excited about it. And like that almost never happens when we do these things. We almost never get follow-ups.
Yeah, I think it was a very rewarding clinic, and I hope that California proves to be as well.
Stay tuned for the episode where Adam, Nelson, and Susanna make Tania eat out of a cooler.
Yeah, probably not going to do that.
Well, guess you'll lose some weight then.
It'll be like a 10-day journey, so we'll see. Our intro topic this month is about de-icers. And that actually ended up, I personally learned this the hard way. Sometimes you just get casual and you're not paying a lot of attention. And I think it was 2 years ago this fall, we had a de-icer that was meant for metal stock tanks. And my son accidentally put in that de-icer when he switched out the stock tanks to something larger. He ended up putting it into a heavy plastic stock tank, which meant that if it came in contact, if the water went down, that it could actually cause the stock tank to melt. And so that happened without us realizing it in time, and it caught the whole barn on fire.
Yeah.
So it was horrifying for me. We did get up there in time to prevent it from destroying the whole barn, and then all the hop folks and folks that are friends with me did kind of pitched in and helped us get that repaired because our barn was not on our insurance policy. So it's just something to be super aware of. All de-icers are not for all tanks. You need to make sure there's water in them no matter what. Yeah. They also can just become faulty.
They should be on a GFCI cord, however you run them, or a GFCI breaker ideally would be the best.
Right.
And you need to watch your heated buckets too, because heated buckets are notorious for melting and catching on fire.
Yeah, I think we've all probably seen, or if you haven't, eventually you will, that Facebook post of a specific image of it happening and catching a barn on fire. It's risky. Some people just won't use them at all. So, I would understand if somebody's afraid to, because it happened to me.
I don't use them.
Right.
Well, I do use one in my barn where I keep a tank of water heated in my barn that we put in jugs and carry out to the outdoor troughs. But I don't use any in the outdoor troughs.
Right.
Or any heated buckets.
And I don't know that I could say certain brands or anything. I think it's just the use, the use of them. Be aware.
Check your wiring every year. Like, run your hands down your wires and make sure that there's no breaks in your wires, because the other big problem with those things is they get faulty and they shock your horses. And sometimes that leads to death, and sometimes that leads to, we can't drink out of this tank, and they don't forget it. Because that actually happened to me. My electric fence went to my trough, and it took me hours to get the mare to drink out of the trough again when I fixed the problem.
All right. So, we do currently use at the facility heated buckets, and we use the de-icers, but we are diligent there about checking those. But there is some risk, and just make sure you're checking to see that if you're using one in a metal tank, it's appropriate versus you're using those made for plastic or rubber tubs. There is a difference.
Plastic or rubber tubs should always have a safety cage. Always.
Right. So that's some handy-dandy information. We were going to talk to you guys a little bit about Anse. You'll probably remember he was a super popular story on the Heart of Phoenix page back in maybe 2021, I feel like. He was a horse that had been dropped out on the strip mine.
Which happens off and on.
Right. Still happens. So if you don't understand what that is, like West Virginia and Kentucky have a lot of active and inactive mine land sites. And this horse, a horse trader, actually manages some of the herds out there.
He dropped off a stallion to add some color to the new crop of foals.
Right, and this stallion was rejected from the herd. He wasn't thriving. He ended up emaciated and was wandering the road systems in Mingo County, West Virginia. And it made kind of international news being shared across social media. It was... it's shared in Australia.
Yeah.
It was all over the world, and we were being tagged in it. And we ended up able to go out. Animal control got involved. Somebody got the horse off the roadway. Animal control asked us to come out and pick the horse up. He was very thin, obviously a stallion. And there was a couple of things that were, tricky about the photo of him. He looked bad, but it made him look a lot darker colored than he actually was, because it was taken at dusk.
He almost looked like a black paint.
Right. And so then when we got him, people were like, it's not the same horse. And he had really unique markings. So conveniently, it was very easy to go through and trace and pay attention that those markings were, it was the same horse. We ended up on the news over him. It was, millions of people saw his story. And it brought a lot of, curiosity to how are these horses out here? What's happening? The guy who dropped him out there ended up commenting. I don't know if you remember it, Susanna. He was like,
He was
wasn't-
fine.
He was fine, and he wasn't feral. And no, you dropped him out there, buddy. We know what you did. He was not handled much, but he had been put out there to add color to herds. And what that trader would do is then grab the babies every spring once they were weaned or in the summer and sell them. So
People need to understand, too, these are not horses that worked in the mine. Sometimes people not from our area are very confused and think these horses worked in the mine and then were just turned out after.
Right.
These were not mine-working horses.
They are mine land horses. They live on active and inactive mine sites. So Anse, the reason we wanted to talk to you about him is Anse then, he came to us, he was we got him castrated, he rehabbed. I think Laura Funderburg started him under saddle, right? I believe so. And she's here this weekend riding her horse she competed last year in the ATFO with, Siobhan. And we've got a lot of little ATFO horses here. We have Siobhan, Grady, Cruz, and
Frenchie.
So we have all those, plus Anse was a showcase. So he's here, and his first trainer is here, and his adopter's here with him.
You just missed him coming across the bridge. You were in the shower when he came across the bridge.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so we just wanted to tell his story. He ended up adopted into a wonderful home. Kaylee loved him from the time she met him. It was her first horse, and it worked because she put him into training, kept him boarded, and it's worked out really well. So he looks great here. He did finish his trail ride. This is the first time she's had him here. But a beautiful story just before and after, just went fantastic.
Yeah, if you want to look him up, go on our Facebook page, the Heart of Phoenix Equine Rescue Facebook page, and type in Anse in the search. And if Facebook's in a good mood, you'll be able to see his past posts. If not, it'll come up with nothing.
Yeah, one day when we do these, we'll probably include some of this stuff somehow in the link, like the package of the whole story. Like, here's links to learn more about this and this. We're not there yet, but
it's ants like devil ants, not ants like little bitty bugs.
So then I named him Anse, A-N-S-E, from Devil Anse Hatfield, from the Hatfield McCoy trails and the Hatfield McCoy feuds that happened in the area that we rescued him from. Up next, we have our controversial portion of the podcast that people are like, you should do away with that. It's mean. Sometimes we're mean.
Well, sometimes they're mean to us.
That's what it is. That's where the ding-a-lings come from. Y'all being mean. Well, play mean.
Not y'all. Maybe our listeners are
No, our listeners
mean.
Aren't. But
we can't broad paintbrush everybody.
No, we have wonderful supporters and a ton of great listeners. And but I always do say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So there's not a particular person.
They might tell you that next week.
Well, now they might. So the story this go was, we had a little mini come in with really, really horrific elf shoes.
He was adorable.
He was so cute. He was a maniac. He was a little stallion, hadn't been handled much, been really kept in a bad situation for a long time, but he had elf shoes,
but they may not know what elf shoes are.
So we call elf shoes, it's a play on the shoes that you'll see on Santa's elves. The shoes come out and they curl up.
Yeah.
Sometimes have bells.
Yeah.
Well, so in horses that or minis, you'll see it more often in minis. They'll founder and the feet roll up and they'll curl, and they can be 12 inches, 18 inches, 24 inches long.
It'll look like goat ram horns sometimes.
Yes, that's kind of the thing. And so what happens is it causes the bone in the foot can move in such a way that it's not repairable. So what happened is we had volunteers that picked him up. They filmed picking him up, unloading him to the first foster on his way to get down to us. And the number of people, and we explained it, the timeline was there. The number of people that were like, how cruel, why before you loaded him didn't you
chop his feet off?
For one, as if that's an easy thing to do. It is not easy.
It's not.
And it is not comfortable for the horse. He also was not very handled.
Yeah.
And also the pain is not, those are difficult to move, but the pain is coming often from inside the foot. So removing all that excess is helpful if you're doing it in a guided way, but it's like he's uncomfortable in part because of what's happened inside the foot.
Yeah.
So then people, he sadly did not have a good outcome. We waited. They did remove the excess to allow him the ability to move a
to
little
lay
more
down,
freely to lay
mainly.
down, because
Yeah.
he hadn't been able to lay down in years.
Because he stabbed himself with his own feet.
And so we did allow the foster to remove the extreme excess, but we didn't do any removal until he came to our vet, because you want x-rays before you go to messing with the feet.
Yep.
I see it all the time. Stop trimming horses that have horrific feet without x-rays before and after. You cannot do it well without x-rays. So the people on that video were just absolutely out of control.
How dare you make him ride in the trailer with his feet like that?
Yeah, like, we didn't do this
How
to
dare
him.
you make him walk with his feet like that? What were we going to do? Make him fly?
Right. And why share this? Why share this without the happy ending? Well, there wasn't a happy ending,
It was
ma'am.
a sad ending.
He was irreparably damaged, and ultimately, even despite our best efforts for several weeks, he could not be pain-free and had no pain-free future. It was very sad all the way around, and awareness needs raised, because there are really people that think it's just like a human fingernail. No matter what my fingernail does, it is not going to impact the bones of my fingers in all likelihood, whereas that excess hoof is changing the whole dynamic of their legs, the foot, the bone, the coffin bone.
He couldn't lay down for years.
Yeah.
But I saw 4 different comments where they said, well, at least he was well fed, so the feet can be fixed. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
no, it would have been so much better had he been thin. That is much easier to fix than damage to the feet.
Yeah.
And I'll just take this time to say also, overfeeding a horse metabolically and in terms of their feet destroys them.
It's
It
very
is
bad.
the most dangerous, terrible thing you can do to a horse. It very often can't be successfully fixed.
especially not if you've gone so long between farrier visits and allowed the white line to be stretched, and then you're just screwed.
Well, and also, in addition to that part, once they have equine metabolic syndrome, it would be very difficult to come back from that, or even if you can. I really don't think once that's happened that you can. But so, enough on that. We are going to talk to you guys as our main topic this month. We want to talk to you about pasture dynamics.
I was reading that, and I thought it said pasted pumpkins, and I was like, what does that mean?
So on this paper in front of me, I have pasture dynamics.
But I'm reading it upside down.
Susanna is reading it as pasted pumpkins.
Pasted pumpkins.
Pasted pumpkins.
It's
I'm going to
very,
try that. Yeah.
It's very,
Yeah, I'm not getting it from there. But I was saying to Susanna when I was outside in the main herd last week at the rescue, or I guess it's still this week. I'm moving on to next week. How different herds are week to week, sometimes month to month, and how horses pair up with horses that either offer something that they're missing or that have commonalities. It's like the feral horses they'll be pulled to the other ferals, and you'll out in a herd of say 40, 30. If some have previously been unhandled, they buddy up. Mustangs get together. Strip mine horses get together with Mustangs. They become friends.
probably because they're looking at those herds going, well, these guys over here aren't paying attention to the surroundings at all. So if I want to be safe, I got to be
Right.
over here with these looky-loos.
And then horses that have high reactions, that are dramatic, that are, hypersensitive. I find that
Drama queens.
a lot drama queens. They tend to get together. Now, smart, like real savvy horses, sometimes will be drawn to the horse that doesn't have those attributes because it's looking for stability. And that's, I think it's a sign of intelligence and trainability. I think if you really study it closely, is that hyper-reactive horse, is it being drawn to horses with stability, or is it being drawn to other very reactive horses? And then I think it would even be interesting if we would look back, and we haven't for the purpose of this podcast, but to look back and say, how often have we seen that? Like a horse, I call it making good choices. Hey, I'm worried about everything. I'm going over here to Steady Eddie, and that's who my buddy is, because that's where I find comfort.
But sometimes Steady Eddie says, we don't want your drama in here. You go over there till you learn how to be less dramatic, and
Right.
then maybe we'll let you back.
Right, and so then you have the horses that are very confident, very people-friendly. They often reject those horses. So even if that horse is drawn, then these real stable, calm.
That's how rescues should be. Rescue should be the stable, calm horse, and if the crazy kooks want to volunteer, be like, no, you go over there and screw your brains in, then you can come back and volunteer.
I don't know. I sent you that thing where it was actually written, Drop Form has it on a volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
Where it says, you can get to the point, now this, I don't want to get off on a different topic, but it says you can get to the point where you really want volunteers so bad that you will allow people that should not be in your organization to have a seat at the table and then cause all kinds of problems instead of having a real intense screening process for those who are able to help. And I sent that to you guys and I was like, this really...
But I tell you, Heart of Phoenix doesn't do that because I stole a horse and they invited me in, so...
So we... I will say, had that happened this day and age with their process, I'd be like, no, you knew what you had done.
I didn't know what I'd done,
but you didn't back then, all those years ago. But yes, that it would be great if humans could sort that out. But in the horse world, this sometimes comes into play when, say, you're worried about, you can't keep one horse. Everybody can't keep every horse forever. So say you have to rehome a horse, and they'll say, well, oh my gosh, they're going to be so upset without their herd mate. And people will hear this and they won't like it. But everyone hasn't moved 1,500 horses around like I have. Horses like choice. They really appreciate choice. And I think what happens when you present horses that have only had one or two herd mate options that they seem to be buddies with, you put them in a herd where they have choice, very rarely does that herd mate stay their buddy. Sometimes if they've been together 10, 20 years and it's a very unconfident horse, it may, but it doesn't usually. It's pretty rare.
I tell you, I'd really love to put a Narrow in with a herd and let him figure out choices because he's driving me crazy.
But a Narrow is going to be accepted by bad guys. The low-end pecking order horses, the anxiety horses, the farrowly horse. He's going to, and that's the reason I think this is important is I have found controlling that, giving them some amount of choice, but if they are making bad choices and they're buddying up with the hard-to-catch horses or the bullies or the unconfident or the reactive, we can step in and say, well, the choices you're making here are going to lead to difficulty in your training life and your rehoming life. So we will walk out and I will say into the herd, you've made bad choices. Yeah. So you can't be out here with this horse anymore because you two together, it's not good, or you four together.
We've had unstable, unconfident horses that we've taken to Morgan's back when she had her really stable herd and turned them out in there, and it's done them a world of good.
So it can do, and I think that's the thing, it's a management tool that can be mismanaged. It can be used for a while. So you can actually put a horse with, it would make sense if you have a horse struggling with certain things and you have like 2 or 3 horses that are really stable in a small setting.
That can be a great tool.
That can be a great tool.
I'd love to put an Arrow with Annie and Luna, but their feed needs are so different, I can't do it.
And that's something you always have to think of, like what are the nutritional needs? We've had really, really aggressive bully geldings that think I'm just I'm a stallion, even though they're castrated, and we've put them into herds where there's been a real dominant gelding already in the herd established, and that has taught them that you are not the boss. You can't go around and terrorize everybody here.
Right. That's been really useful.
And so that's very useful.
I have not been very happy because I had a Narrow and Twinkie and her baby, and a Narrow and the baby were pretty good buddies. And then the baby had to go because it was time to wean the baby, and the baby also is an aggressive little twerp to humans, and he had to go get some education. But taking the baby away made a Narrow turn his attention to Twinkie, who was a pretty stable, friendly, feral horse, and Narrow has pulled Twinkie over to the dark side. And
right.
The farrier and I were not real pleased last time.
So, these are things when you're thinking about horse training, horse emotional needs, when you're thinking about what are the behaviors that are going positively or negatively, herd dynamics factor. And human intervention in that, it's a tool we can use. It can be very useful. It can be misused. What I would say is, we're talking about, people will say, mares are supposed to have their babies forever. No, they're not. That's not natural.
Oh, gosh, she didn't even fuss over that baby. She was so happy to see that baby leave.
But it also creates, when you, in nature, in herds of horses, colts are never going to stay with the mare. They're always going to be rejected.
Right.
Unless they would end up being a band stallion, then there can only be one. So colts are absolutely not meant
Well,
to.
no, they're often run out and killed.
They're run out, and often they do not survive. Or they end up in a bachelor herd. And then fillies, when they mature, different stallions take different mares from herds constantly. They change. We've watched them out on strip mines for years. So it is actually not a natural thing to keep mares and their colts together, and it's unlikely that a mare with the filly would stay.
They do sometimes.
But it's pretty rare, like out in a herd. But they can. I mean, they can. But colts definitely aren't.
No, colts don't.
Which, so when you talk about herd dynamics, really, what happens often if you keep a mare with her offspring, there's a dependency that develops in that baby, and the baby will have a mix of depending, because often the people who do that are going to let the baby become very spoiled. Not everybody, but a lot of them. But then the baby's very dependent on the mother and becomes, fanatical about the mare.
But the thing with Twinkie is, she was very young, probably 2.5 when she was bred. And she was like, okay, I'll feed him and I'll protect him from other horses, but I'm not disciplining him at all. So that set him up to be a real terrorist.
Right. And he wasn't in a large pasture setting. He was at your house. And so it was a small setting.
But everything I tried to put him in with that would potentially discipline him, his mama would run them off with her mouth bared, be like, you ain't touching him. I'm not disciplining him, but neither are you.
Yeah. So we really find it to be, I find it incredibly valuable to recognize what's going on in a herd and think about, is this the best place for this horse? Is this where they really need to be right now? And that's a luxury everybody doesn't have, and I know that.
Right.
But we have that discussion. Here's how this horse is. Here's who he's navigating toward in this herd. This is not good. We've got to move him somewhere or her somewhere. Where can that be? Sometimes it's just a matter of
who's
horses.
got a stable horse we can move him to and put him with.
Yeah,
sometimes
and I guess
we look for a foster.
What does a stable horse look like? What does a stable horse look like? What are we calling a stable horse? Well, it doesn't have to be the boss necessarily.
No, it's not the boss. It's just a low drama horse that isn't like
understands where it is in the herd. It ain't worried about nothing.
Right.
Usually knows the routine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horse that's not struggling with weight or mineral needs where there's something going on. It's not having illness. It's a horse that tends to be healthy.
Yeah.
It's not a horse that the herd in general rejects, but it's not necessarily top of the pecking order. I mean, there's different things. So it doesn't mean like, let's put the horse with the boss. A boss often is not what you're...
No.
Every herd needs a boss, but we're often talking about those horses coasting in the middle that really enjoy people, healthy, doing well, been in the herd a long time. That can do a lot of good. But I do want to circle back to how many people really think that this horse cannot be without his herd mate. And I'm telling you, you take those two herd mates that you think can't live without each other and put them in a herd of 20. And you'll find often when given choice, those aren't the herd mates they wanted. They wanted a different, now that I have a variety.
They'll stay with their original herd mate 2 to 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden you'll look up and the herd mate, one will be over here with 4 horses and one will be over here with 11 horses.
Right. So giving a horse a choice as to who it's going to buddy up with and giving it a variety, it's often going to make different friends than you expect, so don't beat yourself up.
Twinkie's baby's out in Morgan's herd now with the other 3 babies.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best thing for him, really.
Yeah. So I think that's all we've got for you guys. We will probably come to you next month on the road to California.
If we can get Nelson not to make chicken noises in our podcast.
Yeah, like if you all hear that, it's usually Nelson doing it. Yeah. But all right, guys, until next time, I'm Tania.
I'm Susanna.
And that's Horses of Courses.